Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take one topic, explore it really thoroughly, and bring you the key insights, the knowledge you need, but without, overwhelming you.
Exactly. Think of it like your shortcut to getting clued in, hopefully with a few of those aha moments sprinkled in.
So today, for you, the learner, we're venturing into, well, a really vital area,
Yeah.
psychological strength and self-esteem.
That's right. And our source material for this, it's a really rich conversation from Oku Oku, featuring Ukuko and the very insightful Sijinai Kifusku.
Yeah, this discussion, it really dives deep into the challenges we all face, right?
Yeah.
Work, personal life.
Hmm.
And it looks at how building up that psychological strength can be, well, a bit of a game changer for navigating everything.
Absolutely. We'll be digging into how our thinking shapes us, why self-esteem is so crucial, the impact of our relationships.
And even the spiritual side of things, which is interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And our goal here is really to pull out some practical, actionable takeaways for you.
We're not just summarizing. We want to extract those steps, those insights that maybe make something click. Yeah, where you think, okay, yeah, I get that now.
Right. Let's get started.
Okay, let's dive right in then. It feels like modern life it keeps getting more intense. Constant demands from work, information coming at us from everywhere.
It really does.
And it strikes me that psychological strength isn't just like a bonus anymore. It
Right.
feels like a fundamental skill for work, for life, everything.
Spot on. And as we listen to Kain IS Yoanu Lore, you really get the sense that he sees this inner resilience, our psychological strength, as something dynamic. It's not fixed. It's constantly being influenced, strengthened or weakened by all sorts of factors we're going to unpack.
Now, I know some of what we talk about might sound, well, familiar, maybe like common sense motivation stuff you hear all the time.
Sure, yeah.
But there's a really key distinction made, isn't there, between knowing something in your head
Right.
and actually internalizing it so it changes how you behave.
Exactly. And that's where maybe the value of, say, a motivational trainer can come in sometimes. It's that sincerity, that timely reminder that actually pushes you to apply what you already sort of know.
It's like knowing the recipe versus actually, cooking the meal.
Great analogy. And they also talk about theorizing.
Oh, yes.
It's easy to just dismiss theory as like ivory tower stuff, just
Yeah.
talk. But their point is, it's actually the essential groundwork for any real application. Without understanding the why, the how can be a bit hit or miss.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
If you don't understand why certain thinking patterns are unhelpful, it's harder to change them.
Precisely. And, they mentioned the huge investment in training, what was it, $250 billion in the U.S. back in 2017.
Wow. Yeah.
That kind of spending, it really shows how much value businesses place on this stuff. They clearly see a tangible benefit.
It's not just seen as soft skills anymore.
No, definitely not. But what's interesting is the caution they give against Oyampro, basically, just following the herd mentality.
All right, don't just jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah. They really push for independent thinking, questioning assumptions, not just going with the flow because everyone else is.
It's about critical thinking, applying it to your own life.
Exactly. And that ties into the emphasis on continuous learning and development. They mention SEO, Bill Gates, reinforcing this idea that knowledge isn't static, it's always evolving, so we need to keep learning to stay, well, adaptable.
Which brings us to that skepticism some people have towards motivational speakers.
Right. The conversation acknowledges that. There are different camps, aren't there? Some go for that big emotional high,
Yeah, the rah-rah stuff.
while others focus on slower, more gradual change. And Samasia, he seems to lean towards the realistic, step-by-step approach. He's a bit wary of what he calls energy science, maybe things that lack solid proof.
Okay, so this is where it gets really practical, right?
Yeah.
How do we actually build this strength?
Yes. And the core message here is really positive. It's that change and growth are genuinely possible for us.
That's encouraging.
They even bring in that powerful concept from the Quran. God does not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. It puts the power back in our hands.
It's about personal agency.
Definitely. And Aussie has mentioned, too, arguing that if change wasn't possible, giving advice would be totally pointless. He even uses animals adapting as an example.
Right, if they can adapt, surely we can too.
But, and this is key, they identify what's needed to actually make that change happen.
Okay, what are they?
First, you genuinely have to want it. You need to feel that discomfort with how things are now.
That pain point.
Exactly. Second, you need a vision, something you're moving towards. And third, discipline, that often underrated piece.
Discipline, the hard part.
It often is. And they acknowledge that initial burst of enthusiasm we all get.
Oh, yeah, the New Year's resolution effect.
Yeah, that sometimes fades.
Yeah.
So perseverance is absolutely crucial, sticking with it.
Makes sense.
And they introduced a really interesting concept, the chuizie, the illusion of control.
Illusion of control.
Yeah, the idea that while we can influence people, we can't actually control them, their thoughts, their feelings. Realizing that can save a lot of energy and frustration.
That's huge. Trying to change others directly is exhausting.
It really is. And then there's the price of change. Growth usually means giving something up, a habit, a comfort zone.
Right. There's always a trade-off. Letting go of the familiar, even if it's not helpful.
That resistance is real.
So moving into learning from experience. So ESAI shares some quite personal reflections.
He does. He starts with this profound sense of relying on divine help. There's a saying he quotes, "If God's help isn't with a person, their own effort is the first thing to fail them."
Wow.
Yeah, he stresses that ultimate success guidance. Hey, it's in God's hands. It's not about being passive, but acknowledging something bigger.
Humility, in a way.
I think so. And he talks a lot about the value of reading, learning from others' lives to shorten life's journey.
Like getting cheat codes for life from other people's experiences.
Kind of. Learning from their successes and, importantly, their mistakes, too.
Saves you making all of them yourself.
Exactly. And he mentions how early influences, like his father reciting poetry, really stuck with him. Versus that became life principles, like, don't worry too much about things as long as you're alive and well.
That perspective is powerful.
And another one, my own self will perish, so why weep over things if they go? It puts material loss in perspective.
Letting go?
Yes, he stresses forgetting, letting go, and having good references, good role models, avoiding constant stress, that feeling of always being in emergency mode.
It's exhausting living like that.
Totally. And the wisdom of suppressing anger, overlooking minor stuff. He references Yusuf Riakala. He kept it within himself. Not ignoring big things, but choosing your battles.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
Pretty much. And doing good without expecting an immediate thank you or reward, like the story of Musa.
He mentions a book he's writing, 81, and the importance of writing things down.
Yeah, as a way to capture thoughts, develop ideas over time, processing experiences.
Makes sense. Okay, shifting gears a bit. Nature versus nurture. Is psychological strength something you're born with, or is it learned?
Ah, the classic debate. They touch on this. They mention Saucy O, who had these innate qualities God loved: forbearance, deliberation.
So some people are just naturally calmer.
Maybe predisposed. But then they contrast it with the story about genetics, like Ju Oo and his grandfather named Sorrow. So nature plays a role. But the really empowering takeaway is that mostly these skills, including psychological strength, are acquired. They're learned through effort. Knowledge comes through learning. Forbearance comes through striving for it.
So we can develop it, it's not just fixed.
Absolutely. It's mostly about how you play the hand you're dealt.
So what does this psychologically strong person actually look like? It's not about being happy all the time, is it?
No, definitely not. That's a misconception. It's more about the ability to cope when things get tough. Life continues with difficulties, as they say.
Right. It's about navigating the storms, not avoiding them.
Exactly. And managing emotions effectively. The famous saying, the strong person isn't the one who wrestles others down, but the one who controls themselves when angry.
Emotional regulation.
And being able to handle criticism without completely falling apart. Understanding that life ebbs and flows. Clay, Fissy, hey, you.
The ups and downs. It's a more realistic picture.
It is. And that leads right into self-esteem.
Yeah. How does that fit in?
Well, the discussion really critiques linking self-esteem just to external stuff, like possessions or status, that modern tendency.
Right. Basing your worth on what you have.
Instead, they emphasize that true value comes from your character, your values, the positive impact you have. It's internal.
That makes sense.
They use Yusuf's example again. Put me in charge of the storehouses. I am a knowing guardian. He's valuing his skills, his competence, not his family name.
Confidence in his ability.
Yes, and how you see yourself powerfully shapes what you do, what you believe you're capable of.
So that internal narrative is crucial.
Hugely. And they warn against belittling yourself, or others for that matter. They stress the inherent value in every person, referencing verses about being created in the best of stature and honored.
And that direct connection to the divine, no veil between you and him.
Yeah, suggesting an intrinsic worthiness. So self-affirmation is important, recognizing your value beyond your mistakes.
What about imposter syndrome, that feeling of being a fraud?
They mention that too, Salmasonov. It's a reminder that our internal critic isn't always telling the truth.
That critical inner voice.
Exactly. And they talk about masks being overly nice out of weakness, always needing approval. It comes back to defining your responsibilities and being aware of that negative self-talk, that sono-sun.
That inner critic again, that seems to pop up everywhere.
It does, and it impacts our relationships too.
How so?
Well, the conversation connects self-acceptance directly to healthy relationships. If you're struggling internally, those unresolved conflicts often spill out onto others.
Like those disproportionate reactions you sometimes see.
Exactly. It might stem from insecurity, which is why people are often drawn to psychologically strong individuals. They offer stability, they handle conflict better.
They feel safer, maybe?
Yeah, more constructive. They contrast that with people who are constantly critical and just drain your energy.
We all know people like that.
Mm-hmm. And they warn against emotional suffocation in relationships, the need for personal space and freedom. Healthy relationships respect autonomy.
So it comes back to self-love and respect being the foundation for respecting others.
Pretty much. Though they do acknowledge things like smiling depression, where someone looks fine outside but isn't okay inside. It highlights the need to address those internal issues.
Okay, let's talk about the power of thinking. How do our thoughts play into this?
Massively. The conversation warns against specific unhelpful patterns, like, I was tending to on what ifs, if only.
Being stuck in counterfactuals.
Right. And the slight perfectionism. Expecting perfection from yourself and others, it's a recipe for disappointment.
And that point about not being the center of the universe, releasing that need for constant attention, that feels liberating.
It really does. Also, getting fixated on the past, or idealizing the past, can hold you back.
They mentioned the 5 regrets of the dying. That's always sobering.
It is. Not living authentically, working too much, not expressing feelings, losing friends, not allowing more happiness, and specifically regret about education choices.
And the message there is, it's never too late.
Exactly. Never too late to find your path, to live for you, not for others' expectations. Personal choice matters.
That's crucial.
And one last point on thinking. Don't just blindly believe everything you hear. Be discerning, especially with dramatic stories. Critical thinking protects your peace of mind.
Good advice. Now, spirituality, how essential is that?
According to this discussion, it's fundamental, not an add-on. It contrasts our human limits with divine power and knowledge. They talk about as existential alienation, that feeling of, what's it all for?
Yeah, the big questions.
And faith often provides answers, a sense of purpose, versus like, did you think we created you uselessly, or I did not create except to worship me?
There's comfort in that structure, that meaning.
Definitely. Comfort in divine decree, God's knowledge, reward for hardship, ultimate justice.
That sense of things making sense on a bigger scale.
Exactly. And the calming effect of remembrance. Unquestionably, by the remembrance of Allah, hearts are assured. It's presented as a core need.
They briefly mention atheism, too.
Yeah, quoting Stephen Hawking, but emphasizing that true guidance is ultimately in the heart, and they use the complexity of the human body as evidence for a higher power.
And the Prophet's practice of turning to prayer and distress?
Yes, as a source of solace and strength.
Okay, upbringing. We know it's important, but how much does it shape this?
Significantly, according to the discussion. Lots of criticism, lack of emotional support in childhood.
Yeah.
That can create lasting issues.
But it's not destiny, right?
No, absolutely not. The message is clear. Even with a tough start, change is possible. You're not permanently defined by it.
And for parents, the advice is to model strength themselves.
Yes. Actions speak louder than words. And a caution against overprotecting kids.
The bubble wrap effect.
Exactly. It hinders their ability to cope later. Like immunity, you need some exposure to build resilience. Give them responsibilities.
Makes sense. What about lifestyle factors? Sleep? Diet?
They acknowledge the impact. Health, diet, but especially sleep. Whoever improves his sleep improves his day.
Sleep is huge.
Definitely. They warn against chronic late nights and suggest routines avoiding that inner critic before bed, cultivating gratitude upon waking, renewed awakening.
And maybe connecting spiritually before sleep for peace.
Yeah, that's recommended too.
So on the flip side, what weakens our strength?
Well, Those unhelpful thinking patterns, again, idealism, focusing on negatives.
I am being around negativity.
Big time. That constant complaining from others really drains you. They literally ask, how do I get rid of someone who complains a lot?
Yeah.
And the victim mentality, getting stuck, seeing yourself as helpless, it becomes a cycle.
Protecting your mental input seems key, like avoiding too much negative news.
Absolutely. And then there's the whole social media discussion.
Oh boy. What do they say there?
It's a mixed bag, right? Easy access to info, but also so much superficial stuff. The comparison trap is huge. Feeling inadequate looking at curated lives.
Yeah, the highlight reels.
They use strong terms. Intellectual decay, intellectual fluidity from the rapid, shallow content. And the snowflake generation idea, increased sensitivity, maybe seeing victimhood more readily. The artificiality is noted, the constructed realities, and even celebrity depression from the pressure of staying relevant. It's complex.
It really is. Okay, what about boredom? Just feeling...
They normalize it. It's human. The advice isn't to frantically escape it, but find healthy ways to break monotony within your means.
Don't just chase the next shiny object.
Right. And don't be fixated on just one thing. Io pontalieso. Diversify your interests for resilience.
I like the idea of rediscovering wonder in everyday things.
Me too. And the idea that positive thoughts can create positive circumstances, but also the betrayal of prosperity.
Betrayal of prosperity.
Yeah, the idea that too much ease can lead to stagnation. Challenges actually foster strength, like the Germany example. We need challenges.
So adaptation E is key. Flexibility. Focus on the positives of the new, maybe the negatives of the old to help adjust.
Good strategy.
And problems. They're just part of life, aren't they?
Unavoidable. First step, awareness. Acknowledge the problem exists.
Don't rush the solution, though.
Right. Patience often leads to better, more mature solutions. The delayed solution is more mature. And dig for the root cause, not just the symptom.
The Einstein idea, you need different thinking to solve the problem than the thinking that created it.
Exactly. Requires a shift.
Decision-making often involves uncertainty.
Almost always. So gather info, seek guidance, faith, experts, consult.
But don't get stuck in analysis paralysis.
No. Making a decision, even if imperfect, is often better than none. Indecision drains strength. And crucially, once you've decided after due diligence, stop asking for opinions.
Oh, that's interesting. It just invites doubt.
Exactly. Take a decision and make it right. Set a deadline, PC, make the call, then tie your camel and trust in God.
Take action, then let go.
Precisely.
Fear and hesitation, big obstacles.
Huge. Steve Jobs' perspective, remember you'll die, puts fear in perspective.
Focus on your sphere of influence, accept limitations.
Right. And don't overestimate how much others are actually thinking about you. Life's short.
Relying on a higher power helps overcome fear. That Tia Choi quote is powerful. If someone with a father doesn't worry, how about someone with a Lord?
Comforting. And don't think you're indispensable. Takes the pressure off.
Dale Carnegie, stop worrying, start living. Most feared things don't happen.
Yeah, that 90% statistic. So be courageous, reasonably bold, take initiative.
Okay, criticism. How to give it, how to take it.
Giving it. Be humble. Aim to help. Respect the person. Be kind. Private. Mention positives too.
Receiving it. Differentiate between accepting the principle of feedback and actually agreeing with a specific point.
Good distinction. Consider the source. Don't be overly sensitive or stubborn. Acknowledge mistakes. Learn.
Jack Canfield, 140-60 rule. We care less what others think as we age.
Hopefully. And remember, criticism often comes with visibility. If you're doing things, you'll get critiqued.
What about being too nice?
Kindness is good, but passive niceness can lead to being exploited. Boundaries are important. React appropriately when needed. Even the prophet showed firmness sometimes.
Firmness can be necessary for change.
Exactly.
Leadership and responsibility seem central.
It is. Life involves leading yourself, family, teams. Taking responsibility is key. Coveys, be proactive.
Leaders support their teams, and individually we're responsible for our own lives, happiness, success. It extends outwards too, to community, nation.
Taking ownership.
The generous person. Psychologically strong people often have an abundance mindset.
Yes, not scarcity or envy. Giving feels good, and the vessel of giving never returns empty.
But caution against uncontrolled giving.
Right. Isa ulayu can lead to resentment or entitlement in the receiver. needs wisdom.
Speaking of entitlement.
Yeah, need to distinguish healthy self-respect from thinking the world revolves around you and everyone owes you. That expectation of solving everything, pleasing everyone, it's destructive.
Right. Okay, finally, happiness, linked to psychological strength.
Definitely a positive correlation. Happiness is defined in many ways. Clear conscience, childlike heart, simplicity, letting go, relief, absence of pain.
And the blessing of pain.
Yeah, not enjoying pain, but seeing it as a signal, a motivator to heal, to grow physically or emotionally.
Well, that was, wow, a really comprehensive exploration. We covered so much on psychological strength, self-esteem, all from that one conversation.
We really did. And I think the main takeaway is this isn't just something you have or don't have. It's a set of skills, right? Acquirable skills.
Managing thoughts, emotions, relationships, that spiritual side.
Yeah, self-awareness, resilience, adaptability, that healthy self-worth, they're all parts of the puzzle we can actually work on.
And for you, the learner, we hope this deep dive has been, well, a useful shortcut. Getting you to the core ideas, maybe sparking some insights, those aha
Without
moments.
feeling like you're drowning in information. That's the goal.
So here's a final thought to take away with you. Just reflect on one area we talked about today. Maybe it's managing that inner critic we mentioned so much.
Or perhaps setting some clearer boundaries in relationships, or even just rethinking how you engage with social media.
Yeah, pick one thing, and then consider just one small actionable step you could realistically take this week to start cultivating a bit more psychological strength in that specific area.
Just one small step, that's often how real change begins.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.